My parents promised to take my son on a trip to make up for missing his birthday. Then they left him home alone while bringing my sister's kids instead. I only found out days later and made them pay for every lie. I'm 38, an equipment supervisor for a construction company in Fresno. I work long hours, raise my 8-year-old son Luca, and try not to think about the empty chair across from us at dinner. My wife Maria passed away 5 years ago. Since then, it's been just me and him. Family still exists technically. My parents Gloria and Hector live 20 minutes away. My younger sister Diane Rivers lives even closer. They like to remind me that I'm lucky they're nearby though. I can't remember the last time they showed up for something that mattered. That morning, I tied balloons to the dining chairs and set out a small pizza Luca's favorite. We'd invited the family. My mom promised they'd all come around 6 o'clock. Luca counted down the minutes, checking the window every few minutes, his hair still damp from the shower. 6 came and went. 7 passed. The pizza cooled. I told him they probably hit traffic. By 8, he stopped asking. The doorbell rang at 8:15. He sprinted to the door thinking it was them. It was a delivery driver holding a padded envelope for Luca Reyes. Luca looked at me confused but hopeful. I signed and handed it to him. Inside was a thin children's Bible with my mother's handwriting on a card tucked inside. Every good boy should learn gratitude early. Read this and remember to be thankful for what you have. No gift card, no toy, just a sermon in an envelope. Luca stared at the book. Did I do something wrong? He asked quietly. I forced a smile. No, buddy, not at all. He nodded and opened the Bible like it might change if he just looked hard enough. I lit the candles anyway. We sang. We ate a single slice of pizza each, and he went to bed early. When I cleaned up this table, I saw my phone light up. Diane had posted on Instagram a photo of her, my parents, her husband Greg, and their 2 kids sitting at a restaurant table. Steaks, wine, the whole thing. Caption family dinner night. They'd chosen that night. This night. I scrolled past it and closed my phone before I said something I'd regret. The next morning, the house smelled like leftover pizza, and balloons sagged halfway to the floor. Luca came into the kitchen dragging his blanket. You think Grandma forgot the party? She's probably busy, I said. We'll do something fun this weekend. Just us. He smiled because that's what good kids do when they're used to disappointment. Around 10 o'clock, my phone buzzed. Mom's name flashed on the screen. I answered, "Morning, Mom." Her voice was bright, rehearsed. "Nathan, we've been thinking about Luca. We feel terrible about missing his birthday. Diane's taking the twins to Disneyland next week. We think he should come with us." I leaned against the counter watching Luca draw at the table. "That's generous. It'll be good for him," she said. "He can spend time with his cousins, make memories. You work so hard you could use a break." I didn't respond right away. My parents aren't known for sudden bursts of generosity. Then she added, "Maybe the trip will teach him gratitude." There it was again. Gratitude. Always their favorite word when they were given the bare minimum. "I'll think about it," I said. "Don't overthink. We already bought the tickets without asking me. It's a gift, Nathan. Don't make it complicated." Diane's voice came faintly through the speaker. "Tell him to pack something decent. We're not babysitting in rags." I felt my jaw tighten. "Put her on the phone." "Don't start," Mom said quickly. "She's just excited. I'm sure she is." "Well, pick him up the morning of the trip," she said, her tone firm. "No need to thank us." I wanted to say no. Every part of me did. But Luca had spent the last night asking why they didn't come. Why Grandma didn't even call. Saying no would punish him, not them. "Fine," I said. "But you look after him. Understand?" Mom exhaled like I was a nuisance. "Of course we will. Don't you trust us?" Trust. Another word they liked to use when they were about to disappoint me. After the call, I stood there for a long time, the phone still warm in my hand. Luca looked up from his drawings. "Was that Grandma?" "Yeah," I said. "She wants you to go to Disneyland with them." His eyes widened. "Really? Really?" He jumped off the chair and hugged me hard. "Thanks, Dad." "Don't thank me yet," I said, ruffling his hair. "Just promise to have fun." He nodded, already running to his room to pack imaginary souvenirs. My flight to Denver was scheduled for Monday morning, the same day they planned to leave for Disneyland. It felt like the universe was throwing me a test. 2 separate trips that couldn't have been timed better. I told myself it was a sign that things might finally go right for once. Sunday afternoon, I spread Luca's clothes across the couch, shorts, shirts, pajamas, and his little sneakers with the scuffed toes. He hovered beside me, excited and nervous. Do you think Grandma will like my drawings? He asked. She'll love them, I said, folding a stack of shirts. And remember to pack your sketchbook. You can draw everything you see. He grinned and ran to grab it. Inside the front pocket, he kept a photo of his mom, Maria, holding him as a baby, both smiling at the camera. He always carried it on trips. By evening, his suitcase was ready. I labeled everything, even the snacks: granola bars, crackers, juice boxes. I knew my family. If I didn't plan ahead, Luca would end up living off fast food and leftovers. Around 6, I drove him to my parents' house to drop off his things. Gloria opened the door wearing her usual expression, tight smile, polite eyes, no warmth behind either. Well, there's my grandson, she said, like she was greeting a guest instead of family. Hey, Grandma, Luca said shyly, handing her one of his drawings. It's us at Disneyland. She looked at it for half a second before tucking it onto a side table without comment. Lovely. I pulled an envelope from my jacket and handed it to her. This is for him, I said. Food souvenirs, whatever he wants. She weighed it in her hand, thumb pressed against the edge of the bills. How much is this, $500? Her eyebrows lifted. That's generous. It's for him, I repeated. She slipped it into her purse like a waitress pocketing a tip. Don't worry, we'll handle everything. That $500 came out of my own travel budget, I said. I figured I could skip a few meals if it meant he'd have the time of his life. She didn't respond, just gave me that same thin smile. Diane appeared from the hallway wearing designer sunglasses, though we were indoors. Oh, he's coming after all, she said. Good. Maybe he'll finally learn how to have fun with normal kids. I looked at her. He is normal, Diane. He's 8. Relax, she said, smirking. I was joking. Greg came in behind her, phone in hand, not bothering to look up. We leaving early tomorrow? 6 sharp, Diane said. We don't want to hit traffic. Good, I said, turning to Luca. You ready for your big adventure? He nodded, eyes wide. Do you think I'll see Mickey? I think you'll see everything, I said, kneeling to fix his backpack strap. Just make sure you call me every night, okay? Promise. He hugged me tight. His little arms always had a way of grounding me. I didn't want to let go. Don't worry so much, Gloria said behind me. You act like we've never raised kids. I stood and faced her. You raised 2. I'm just asking you to take care of one. Her lips pressed thin, always with the attitude. I'm just being clear. Diane rolled her eyes. God, you're exhausting. No wonder Mom's always stressed after talking to you. I ignored her and turned to Luca again. You're going to have a great time. Send me pictures. He nodded. Love you, Dad. Love you more. When I walked out to the car, my stomach felt tight. I told myself it was just travel stress. Work trip, early flight, too much coffee, nothing more. That night, I set my alarm for 4 o'clock and double-checked my itinerary. Denver for 4 days. Back Friday, just enough time for them to have their fun. I sat on the couch for a while, staring at the empty living room. His backpack was gone. The little messes he usually made already cleaned up. The apartment was too quiet. I tried to picture him laughing on rides, eating ice cream, maybe buying something with the money I'd given them. That's what I wanted to believe. My phone buzzed around 10 o'clock. A text from Mom. We're all packed, Luca's excited. I typed back, thanks for taking him. No reply. I grabbed my bag and headed to the airport. At the gate, I called once more. Diane answered on speaker. Kids yelling in the background? We're on the road, she said. Is Luca okay? He's fine, she said, distracted. He's quiet, but he'll warm up. Can I talk to him? He's asleep, she said. We'll call when we stop for lunch. All right, just make sure he eats. Bye, Nathan, she said before hanging up. The line went dead. I sat there staring at my phone until boarding was called. On the plane, I tried to focus on work notes, but my mind drifted back to the kitchen table, to that Bible sitting by the window, the note still tucked inside. Every good boy should learn gratitude early. The words replayed in my head like static. Maybe this trip would prove me wrong. Maybe they really were trying. Still, something felt off. When the plane took off, I looked out the window and told myself not to worry. I'd packed everything. I'd given them money. I'd done my part. Now it was on them to do theirs. Denver was busy. The kind of trip that should have kept my mind occupied. I checked into the hotel Monday night, answered a few work emails, and told myself Luca was fine. As soon as I checked in, I texted my mom. The reply came almost instantly. He's playing with the twins already. I smiled for the first time that day. I even showed the message to a coworker like proof that things were finally normal. That peace lasted maybe an hour. By evening, I still hadn't heard from Luca. No call, no picture. I texted Mom again. Everything good? He's asleep, she wrote back. Their story kept shape-shifting every time I asked for Luca's voice. The next morning I checked my phone as soon as I woke up. Nothing. I sent another message. How's he doing? A few minutes later, he's fine, having fun. That was it. No stories about rides, no photos of smiles, not even a mention of what he ate. It didn't sound like her. It sounded rehearsed. At lunch I called her, straight to voicemail. I called again. Same thing. I tried Diane next. No answer. Greg straight to voicemail. By the time my meetings ended, a knot had formed in my chest. I kept refreshing my messages, scrolling between texts like something new might appear if I stared long enough. I sent one more. Can I talk to him real quick? No response. That night I sat in my hotel room with the TV on mute, watching the news without hearing it. My phone sat face up on the table, screen dark. I told myself they were probably just busy. Disneyland was loud, crowded, full of distractions. Maybe they didn't want to lose track of the kids while answering calls. It made sense. It had to. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Around 10 o'clock, I texted again, just checking in. Everything okay? Nothing. I waited an hour, then called one last time straight to voicemail. By midnight, I couldn't pretend anymore. Something wasn't right. The next morning, I skipped breakfast and called the hotel they said they'd booked in Anaheim. The woman at the front desk looked up the name. I'm sorry, sir, she said. I don't have any reservation under Reyes or Rivers. I gave her every possible spelling. Still nothing. She paused. Are you sure they're staying here? That's when my hands started shaking. Yeah, I said, though my voice came out thin. I'm sure. I hung up and stared at my phone. I called Mom again. Diane, Greg. All went straight to voicemail. It felt like the air was closing in. At work, I went through the motions, nodded through meetings, smiled at things I didn't hear. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped. By late afternoon, I finally got a message. It wasn't from Mom, it was Diane. Relax, he's fine. You're acting paranoid. I typed back, can I just hear his voice? No response. 10 minutes later, I called again straight to voicemail. I didn't know what to do. Call the police. File what missing trust. My kid was supposedly with his family. I had no proof of anything except bad instincts. That night, I tried to eat dinner at the hotel restaurant. The food tasted like paper. I kept checking the door, expecting them to walk in. Tell me it was all a mix-up. When I got back to my room, I saw one new text. Mom again, he's asleep. Stop worrying so much. I stared at it for a full minute before setting the phone down. If Luca was really with them, why couldn't he talk to me? Why couldn't she just hand him the phone for 30 seconds? What if this was their way of teaching him that some twisted lesson in independence? It sounded insane, but so did everything else. I didn't sleep. I just sat on the edge of the bed watching the numbers on the clock change. Around 3 o'clock in the morning, I tried calling again. Nothing. The silence wasn't just frustrating now. It was terrifying. When the sun came up, I packed my things. Even though the conference still had another day left, my gut told me to go home. I just didn't know what I'd find when I got there. I was halfway checking out of the hotel when my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it, but the number had a California area code. Mr. Reyes. The voice was steady. Official. This is Officer Morales with the Fresno Police Department. My pulse jumped. Yes, your son's been found safe, but you need to come home immediately. Found? I repeated. The word didn't fit. What do you mean found? He's supposed to be with my parents. There was a pause, a small sigh. A neighbor reported movement inside your parents' house. They believed it was a break-in. Our officers responded, forced entry, and located your son inside. Inside the house. Yes, sir. Alone. The hallway tilted. My hand went numb around the phone. How long? From what we can tell, at least 2 or 3 days. I felt the world narrow into a single sound, the rush of blood in my ears. Is he safe now? Morales said carefully. Paramedics took him to St. Agnes Hospital for observation. He's stable but dehydrated and scared. He keeps asking for you. That word stuck now. Not safe. Safe now. I'm flying home. I said, already moving toward the elevators. I understand, Mr. Reyes. CPS has been notified. We'll need to speak with you once you arrive. Of course. I hung up and booked the first flight out without thinking. My hands shook as I typed my information. The woman at the counter tried to make small talk. I didn't hear a word. The flight home was a blur. I don't remember takeoff or landing, just Morales' voice looping in my head. Safe now. Not safe before. Not safe when he should have been. By the time I reached Fresno, the sun was low and the sky looked bruised. A patrol car waited outside the terminal with its lights off. Morales, a stocky man in his 40s, stood beside it. "Mr. Reyes." I nodded. He opened the passenger door. "I'll take you to the hospital." On the drive, he explained what happened. "Your neighbor, Mrs. White, noticed curtains moving. She knew your parents were supposed to be out of town, so she called it in. Officers arrived, knocked several times, no response. They heard crying from inside. My throat tightened. When they forced the door, they found your son in the living room. Almost no food, no water except what he found in a bathroom cup. He told us he'd been there since Monday." "That's 3 days," I said quietly. "Yes, sir." "Where were my parents?" He glanced at me. "We're still trying to confirm. Their phones are off, your sister's as well." I looked out the window at the passing streetlights. Each one flashed across my reflection like a pulse. When we reached St. Agnes, Morales parked out front. "He's in pediatric observation," he said. "CPS will meet with you after the doctor clears it." I walked through the hospital doors before he finished talking. The nurse at the desk recognized me immediately. "Mr. Reyes, he's been asking for you." She led me down the hall to a small room. Lucas sat on the bed, pale and thin, an IV taped to his arm. His clothes were wrinkled face streaked with dried tears. When he saw me, he smiled weakly. "Dad," he said, voice small. I crossed the room and pulled him close, careful not to tug the tubes. "I'm here, buddy. You're okay." "They left," he whispered against my shoulder. "Grandma said they'd be back soon, but they didn't come back." I tried to open the door, but it was locked. I swallowed hard. "You did nothing wrong. Do you hear me?" "Nothing." He nodded, his little hands gripping my shirt. The nurse checked the monitor. "He's lucky. Mild dehydration. Little hungry, but he's strong." I looked at her. "Can he go home tonight? Doctor wants to keep him overnight just to be sure." I nodded. "That's fine." When she left, I sat beside his bed. He fell asleep within minutes, holding my hand. I stayed there, staring at the IV drip, the steady beep of the monitor. Every sound in that room branded itself into me. Morales came back an hour later, notebook in hand. "Mr. Reyes, I know this is hard, but we need a statement." "Of course." He sat across from me. "You said your parents were supposed to take him on a trip." "Yes, Disneyland. They told me they'd already picked him up. Said he was with the twins. They left for Anaheim without him." My jaw clenched. "They lied." He nodded. "We're confirming details now. CPS will file for temporary protective oversight. Standard in these cases." "I'm his father," I said. "He's not going anywhere without me." "That's clear," Morales said, closing his notebook. "But we have to go through the steps." When he left, I leaned back in the chair and looked at Lucas sleeping. His hair was matted, skin pale under the hospital lights, but his breathing was steady, safe now. The words looped because before that he wasn't. Not before. Not when I thought he was on the road playing with the twins. Not when I was sending texts to people who already knew what they'd done. Only now. I stayed awake the rest of the night, watching the dawn creep through the blinds. By morning, my hands had stopped shaking. The fear was gone, replaced by something quieter, sharper. It wasn't confusion anymore. It was purpose. They wanted to teach him gratitude. They were about to learn what accountability looked like. By the time Luca was cleared from the hospital, the shock had burned into something harder. The police report was filed. CPS had documented everything, and I had copies of every text they sent pretending he was with them. CPS approved a same-day safety plan so I could leave him with Mrs. Patel next door while I handled statements and paperwork. Then I drove straight to my parents' house. Police reached them in Anaheim. They drove back overnight. A sheet of plywood covered the splintered doorframe, the fresh screws still bright against the wood. Their front yard looked the same as always. Trimmed hedges, porch lights still on in broad daylight. The perfect picture of normalcy. It made my stomach turn. Gloria opened the door before I could knock twice. Her hair was done, makeup on like she'd been expecting company. Her smile was tight. "You didn't have to make a scene, Nathan. He's fine now." I stared at her. "You locked my son in a house and left town." Her expression didn't change. "Oh, stop. You're being dramatic." He wasn't hurt. He went 3 days without food or water. "He had running water," she said, folding her arms. "You act like he was abandoned in the woods." Behind her, Diane appeared, sunglasses on inside like she was hiding from the truth. "We thought he wanted to stay," she said casually. "He's sensitive. Every little thing makes him cry." Greg walked in behind her, holding a coffee cup like he owned the place. "He survived, didn't he?" The words hit like a punch. For a second, the silence in the room was heavy enough to choke on. I stepped inside and shut the door. You took the money I gave you. You lied to me. You left a child locked in a house. Diane shrugged. We didn't take anything. Mom said you gave it to her. It was for him. Greg chuckled. Money's money. Relax. I looked at him. You think this is funny? He smirked. You've always been too emotional, Nate. Always trying to play the hero. I took a breath steady and low. I didn't yell. I didn't need to. You took his money. You lied to me. You left a child alone. That ends now. Gloria's smile snapped. You always exaggerate. You've been coddling him since his mother died. That's the problem. You mean since you didn't bother to visit her in the hospital, I shot back? Since you sent flowers instead of showing up. Her voice went sharp. That's not fair. Neither is what you did. Diane rolled her eyes. Oh, stop playing victim. Everything's always about poor Nathan. Mom did her best. You just like being the martyr. I turned to her. You abandoned my son. You let him starve while you were smiling for pictures in Disneyland. That's not true, she snapped. We didn't know. You knew exactly what you were doing. Greg stepped forward, voice low but condescending. You're lucky Mom doesn't press charges for slander. You've embarrassed this family enough. This family, I laughed once, no humor in it. You think you're a family? Gloria crossed her arms tighter. We did what we thought was best. You've always been ungrateful, Nathan. We gave you everything and you never once said thank you. Everything I said, staring at her. You gave me a childhood full of comparisons and guilt. You gave my son neglect and humiliation. That's not everything. That's nothing. Diane threw her hands up. Oh, here we go. The lecture. You're not some Saint Nate. You think this one mistake makes us monsters? One mistake. I stepped closer. You left an 8-year-old locked in a house to teach him gratitude. You think that's a mistake? That's cruelty, Greg muttered. He's fine now. You're overreacting. I turned to him, my voice low, steady. Greg, tell them what happens when you disrespect a man's kid. He went silent. The smirk vanished. He looked down at his coffee. That's what I thought. Gloria's face hardened. You're not welcome here if you're going to talk to us like this. I nodded once. Good. I walked toward the door. Diane's voice followed me. You'll regret this. Family sticks together. I stopped at the doorway. Greg, I said without looking back. Tell them what kind of family sticks together after this. He didn't answer. I stepped out into the sunlight and pulled the door closed behind me. My hands weren't shaking anymore. As I walked to the car, Greg called after me from the porch, voice uncertain now. Don't do something you'll regret, Nate. Family's all we've got. I opened the car door and looked back once. Not this kind. Then I drove away. The drive home was quiet except for the sound of tires on asphalt. My phone sat on the passenger seat, buzzing with missed calls from numbers I didn't care about anymore. At the first stoplight, I dialed a number I'd written down earlier from a police referral list. A family law attorney named Claire Sodto. She answered on the second ring. This is Claire. This is Nathan Reyes. I said, my family abandoned my son while I was out of state. I want to press charges for neglect, theft, whatever applies. I want this handled right. Her tone shifted immediately. You said abandoned. Is the police report filed? Yes. Fresno PD, Officer Morales. Good. I'll need a copy plus any text messages or proof of financial exchange. I have everything. Then we start there, she said firmly. They'll be facing multiple counts of endangerment. We can add financial exploitation if you can prove they took your son's money. I exhaled. They did. Then we'll make sure they answer for it. You did the right thing calling. I thanked her, ended the call, and sat there for a moment before pulling back onto the road. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small or guilty. I felt steady. They'd spent years teaching me to stay quiet, to swallow every insult, to forgive for the sake of family. Not anymore. They wanted to teach my son a lesson about gratitude. Now they were about to learn one about consequences. The morning after I called Claire Sodto, things moved fast. She didn't waste time with pleasantries, just results. Within a week, the district attorney filed the criminal charges. Child endangerment, Penal Code 273A, and false imprisonment, Penal Code 236. Claire handled the protective order and prepared our civil claim for damages and restitution of the $500. The DA prosecutes the crimes. Claire told me I'll make sure they have everything and run point on the protective order and civil damages. Claire wasn't like other lawyers I'd met before. She was calm, sharp, and intimidating in the way quiet people are when they don't flinch. She'd seen cases like mine, but few as deliberate. "They didn't forget him, Nathan?" she said, flipping through the police report. "They planned to leave him. That's intent. She organized everything. The text messages where they lied, the timestamps, the police body cam footage from when they broke into the house. Each piece formed a timeline that painted my family for what they were, calculated and careless. The worst part was seeing the messages again. He's fine. He's asleep. Stop worrying so much. Each one colder than the last." Claire highlighted them on a large printout. "This," she said, tapping the page, "is going to end their defense before it begins." A month later, an envelope arrived at my apartment, my name typed neatly on the front. Inside was a letter from my parents. "Dear Nathan, we're deeply sorry for the misunderstanding and for any pain caused. We never intended harm. Please don't let outsiders destroy this family. Let's forgive, move on, and heal. Love, Mom and Dad." Both signatures looked off. Claire had it examined by a handwriting analyst. The results came back clear. Diane typed and signed it herself. "Classic manipulation," Claire said, sliding the report across her desk. "They're trying to set up the illusion of remorse before trial." The courtroom smelled faintly of old paper and coffee. The walls were beige, dull, indifferent, fitting for a place where people stripped themselves down to truth or lies. The first hearing felt surreal. Gloria sat beside Diane at the defense table, both dressed in black like they were attending a funeral. Greg sat behind them, avoiding my eyes. Claire leaned toward me. "You ready?" I nodded. "Yeah, let's do this." The prosecution called Mrs. White first. The elderly neighbor looked small under the courtroom lights but spoke with steady conviction. "I saw movement in the curtains," she said. "I thought it might be burglars. When the police broke in, I saw that boy sitting on the floor. He looked afraid to wave." The defense tried to downplay her testimony. "So you didn't actually witness anyone locking him in?" the defense attorney asked. Mrs. White didn't blink. "No, but I witnessed him alone." That was enough. Then came the police officer Morales, who walked the court through what they found. A locked door, half-eaten granola bar, a single cup in the bathroom sink. The judge's pen didn't stop moving. The prosecutor waited until the perfect moment to show the texts. "Your Honor," the prosecutor said, handing over the printouts. "These are messages sent by the defendants during the 3 days the child was missing." The courtroom went silent as the judge read each one aloud. "He's asleep. He's fine. Stop worrying so much." Then came the exhibit that broke me. With the court's permission, the prosecutor introduced a crayon drawing from therapy. This was drawn by the child during therapy. The prosecutor said he was asked to draw where he felt safe. The picture showed a house with no doors, windows colored black, and a small stick figure inside with the words, "Me here," written above it. The judge stared at it for a long time. No one spoke. His therapist said, "Some kids draw sealed houses when safe means no one can reach them." Diane shifted in her seat. Gloria stared down at her lap. When the judge finally looked up, his expression had hardened. "We'll take a short recess," he said quietly. During the break, Diane walked past me on her way to the restroom. "You think this makes you some kind of hero?" she hissed. "You're just jealous. Mom loves me more." I didn't respond. When court resumed, the judge asked if I wanted to make a statement before closing arguments. Claire glanced at me. I stood. "Your Honor," I began, voice steady. "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because my son deserved better. He deserved adults who kept their promises. He didn't ask for money or gifts. He asked for family who'd show up. I failed to see what they were until it nearly cost him his safety." I paused. "This isn't about hate. It's about accountability." When I sat back down, Claire gave a small nod, the kind that said, "That's exactly what we needed." The defense never recovered. They stumbled through excuses that it was a miscommunication, that Luca had insisted on staying behind, that they were planning to come back soon. The prosecutor countered with timestamps, texts, and the officer's testimony. The lies crumbled, one by one. Midway through, Diane and Gloria filed a separate civil defamation suit against me. Claire responded with an anti-SLAPP motion in civil court. At the first hearing, the judge dismissed their claim and awarded fees. Back in the criminal courtroom, the prosecutor read their texts aloud. "He's asleep, he's fine," and held up the police report. Luca was alone in a locked house while those messages were sent. By the final day, it wasn't a question of guilt, only the extent of it. When the verdict came, the courtroom was silent except for the judge's voice. Gloria Reyes and Diane Rivers are found guilty of child endangerment and false imprisonment. Sentencing includes probation, mandatory counseling, restitution fines, and a no-contact order preventing contact with the minor. Gloria gasped. Diane whispered something to Greg, who looked like he wanted to vanish. The judge continued. Mr. Reyes, the court commends you for your restraint and cooperation with law enforcement. The court's primary concern is the welfare of your son. Afterward, Diane's attorney approached Claire about settling the civil suit quietly. Part of the agreement included a college trust fund and therapy costs for Luca funded entirely by Diane's assets. Claire reviewed the paperwork and handed it to me to sign. When I did, the final page felt heavier than anything I'd ever held. Not from guilt, but closure. After court adjourned, I turned to Claire. You did more than win a case, I told her. You gave me something my family never did. Peace. She smiled faintly. Then we did it right. Months passed. Winter softened into spring. I sold my apartment and moved Luca to a small coastal town a few hours north. It wasn't fancy. 2 bedrooms, a creaky porch, and the smell of salt in the morning air, but it was ours. We spent Saturdays fixing the place up. Luca painted the mailbox blue, insisting it was his favorite color. I started building a treehouse in the backyard, each nail driving the past further away. Every hammer strike felt like closing a wound. He laughed again, loud and unrestrained. His drawings changed too. No more dark houses. Now they were filled with sunlight rockets and superheroes that somehow always looked a little like me. One evening while I was cleaning up dinner, my laptop pinged with a new email. The sender, Gloria Reyes. The subject line read, Family forgives. The message was short. We've all made mistakes, Nathan. Family should forgive each other. Don't hold grudges. Let's start over. I stared at it for 10 seconds, then clicked delete. Some things didn't need a reply. That weekend, Luca and I sat on the porch watching the sunset. He was sketching on his pad again. After a while, he handed me the drawing. It was a castle fireworks bursting above it, and 2 stick figures standing hand in hand at the gate. Next time, he said, we go together. I smiled. Yeah, kid. Next time, just us. He leaned against my arm. The sound of waves carried from the distance, steady and calm. For the first time in years, silence felt safe. I looked around our little house, the half-built treehouse visible through the kitchen window, the blue mailbox catching the last light of day. Everything here was small, simple, and real. No lies, no guilt, no performance, just a father and son who finally had room to breathe. As the sky darkened, I thought about everything that had happened. The locked door, the courtroom, the judge holding Luca's drawing, and the woman who taught me that justice wasn't about anger, but boundaries. They left my boy behind to teach him gratitude. They taught me what family isn't. And I taught them what accountability looks like. Later that night, after Luca went to bed, I stepped outside. The ocean air was cool, carrying the faint sound of distant laughter from the boardwalk. I stood there for a long time, letting it sink in. No calls, no guilt, no more pretending blood meant loyalty. I turned off the porch light, looked at the stars, and went inside. For once, I didn't feel like someone's backup plan or safety net. I was just a dad who'd finally learned to stand his ground and a man who refused to let silence be mistaken for weakness ever again. And that was enough. And that was enough. And that was enough. And that was enough.